and welcome back to Constellation Station. Here at Constellation Station, we like to do three things. We like to learn about constellations, we like to learn where we can find those constellations up in the night sky, and we like to learn about how to make those constellations in our own home. So for this week, we're going to talk about one of my favorite constellations, and actually we had a guess about this constellation a couple weeks ago when I put out my constellation inspiration, but this week we're really doing it. We're doing the Gemini twins as our constellations this week. So Gemini is famous for its two stars up here, Castor and Pollux. That's the main event. In fact, sometimes when we see this constellation up in the night sky, when we see someone maybe tracing this constellation, sometimes it just has Castor and Pollux connected together up in the night sky, just the two of them. But I don't think that really helps us see these two as twins. So we're going to do the full constellation today with each twin. Are you guys ready to connect the dots of our constellation this week? All right. So I'm going to start with Castor first. And this week we are using our handy dandy pipe cleaners to connect our dots. So part of Constellation Station is learning how to make them in our own home. And maybe you already have some pipe cleaners at home. You don't have to go out and buy any. So I found some sparkly ones that I had, and we're going to connect the dots today with our sparkly pipe cleaners. So we're going to start up at the head. So you can see that I bent this pipe cleaner so it kind of goes into place where it needs to go already. And so I pre-bent it, but that's kind of the nice thing about being creative with our materials is that this works really well to connect more than one dot together at a time. If you remember when I was connecting the dots with Hydra, I had one long string and it worked out pretty well, but it was hard to kind of turn the corners. With pipe cleaners, that's kind of solved for me. So we're going to continue connecting our dots here. We have our other arm. Make sure that's taped on all the way. If you don't have tape, you can always use glue. It might take a little bit longer to dry, but it'll be a good way to connect the constellations as well. So now we're here to connect two pipe cleaners together, a very long pipe cleaner, to connect the rest of the body and one of our legs here. So I bent it just a little bit right here so that you can see how it goes from the body of Castor into the leg. And I have just one more pipe cleaner for Castor. All right, Castor's all done. So like I said, I did some pre-work for this. I put together a couple pipe cleaners to connect them together. So this is something you could also do just sort of one pipe cleaner at a time, taking your time bending the pipe cleaners how you need them. For Castor, I decided to stick with green and gold pipe cleaners so we could see exactly what is Castor, and then we could move on to Pollux with a new set of colors for Pollux. So again, we're going to start up at the head of Pollux. You can see for both of our twins, they have kind of special stars, so a white blue and a like reddish orange stars, and these are how the stars look either with your naked eye or with a really maybe with binoculars or really small telescope. So some of these stars are actually way more complex than just being a single really bright blue or red star, but this is how it looks up in the night sky. So that's how I wanted to connect our dots today. So we have our next pipe cleaner. Let's see, coming all the way down. Ooh, wait, let's see. Oh, there we go. We're gonna connect this dot double up here with this pipe cleaner. Like this. Ooh, sometimes when we connect the dots, we run into just a little bit of trouble. There we go. I just need one more piece of tape. maybe I'll use this other pipe cleaner for a different part of the constellations. So like I said, I decided to use different colors for Castor and Pollux. And here we have silver and purple. We just have a couple dots to connect left. So I decided to connect our two legs like this, so you can see that our dots are connecting here a little bit lower down than it did on Castor. So Pollux body comes all the way down here. Pollux is very tall. Castor was always jealous of that. Actually, I don't know, but I'm just making that up, right? Constellations are all about making up silly stories of how our constellations got up in the night sky, and maybe even just silly stories of where they, what happened when they were on Earth, right? Because our constellations, a lot of them come from Greek mythology. So way back in the day, Greeks would make up stories about a lot of our constellations, including Castor and Pollux. So Castor and Pollux were twins. Some people said that they came from two different dads but the same mom, which I think would be really crazy if we're talking about twins. But that's one of the stories about Castor and Pollux. And when they were born, they were twins, but then when they went to die, they found out that Castor was not immortal, but Pollux was immortal. So Pollux had a choice to make. He could either let his brother die and he could be immortal forever, or they could both be immortal in the sky and become a constellation together up in the night sky. So that's the story of how Castor and Pollux got up into the night sky according to Greek mythology. Maybe you could say a different story today. Maybe if these are twins, maybe you are a twin or you know twins. Maybe those twins were holding hands while jumping on a trampoline and they accidentally jumped too high and jumped all the way up into the sky. That would be a pretty silly story about how twins got up in the night sky, and we can use in our imaginations to get there to make up any kind of story we want about our constellations. So I also want to talk to you a little bit today because we're using Gemini. Most of you guys are probably familiar with the constellation Gemini because you may have heard it as an astrological sign. So today I want to talk a little bit about astrology and astronomy. So as astronomers at the Cincinnati Observatory, we like to talk about constellations because constellations help us understand where the Earth is in relation to outer space. And there's particular constellations that are in what's called the zodiac. You may have heard of that as well, because the zodiac is in astrology and astronomy. And what does the zodiac mean? The zodiac means that these constellations kind of follow the path of the sun. So as the Earth orbits around the sun and rotates on its axis, we see different stars every night. But the stars keep kind of coming up and being the same, right? That's why we can keep track of constellations. We've talked about that on the show before. And these constellations in the zodiac actually follow the sun as we orbit around it. So all of these constellations go straight through the sun's path when we see the sun from Earth. So they help us understand as scientists where the Earth is in relation to the sun in outer space. So that's why these constellations are so important to astronomers. Astrologers look at these stars, look at these constellations, and they compare them to different personality traits. So you may have heard that you have a certain astrological sign. My sign is Cancer. So if I'm an astrologer, maybe I could use these constellations to describe different maybe traits that I have as a person. But as astronomers, we're really more interested in the science of finding out where these are up in the night sky and how do they understand our place in the universe. So astronomy is really more of a science, and that's really the difference. But that's what's great about constellations is you can use your imagination to come up with a lot of different ways that constellations relate to your own life. So I encourage you to explore constellations, learn more about them, because they can be really important to our understanding of ourselves and our place in outer space. So now, where can I find this constellation up in the night sky? I already told you that it follows the path of the sun as we orbit around the sun, but where can you actually find it, right? You are in outer space. Since we're here on Earth, we can see this constellation, Gemini, Castor and Pollux, up in the night sky in the western sky. So if you go outside around 9:30 this time of year, you can see Castor and Pollux holding hands. It doesn't look like their hands are gold and silver, but we can use our imaginations. They're holding hands out in the night sky in the western sky at about 9:30. So that's where you want to look for them, up in the night sky. So I want to encourage you guys to make your own constellations at home, right? That's the third part of Constellation Station. And I hope you got some ideas today of creative ways to do that. So I used pipe cleaners today to connect the dots in my constellation. I want you guys to share what you've been doing. Have you just been drawing pictures of constellations? That's one of my favorite ways to make constellations. Have you made your own constellation station? We want to hear from you guys. So go ahead and share with us on social media. If you have any constellations that you've made, you can go to our YouTube page and you can find different information about constellations as well. So if you want to figure out how to maybe draw your own constellation, there's some information on there. And then you can post those pictures on Facebook or Instagram. We're at Cincinnati Observatory Center on Facebook. And of course, you're here with me now on Instagram at Cincinnati Observatory. And you can tag us with the hashtag Constellation Station. And if you have some constellation inspiration around your home, you may have noticed that I've used a couple things like my pet snake. Then you can hashtag Constellation Inspiration of the ways that you have found inspiration in your own life for our constellations up in the night sky and learning a little bit more about them. Thanks for watching, and we will see you guys next week.